of the motorcycle, on both sides, I have these crash bars. These are made of aluminum, and specifically for the KLR, I purchased this brand, which is by SW Motec, because it attaches here rather than up there or elsewhere. So it has two attachment points to the motorcycle. One is there, and one is here, and it attaches to the other side, the other crash bar on the other side, through this bar that goes across. I've had a fall and completely protected the motorcycle. I was really surprised how well it did. And one other thing that I learned is that the crash bars, in conjunction with the pannier that I have in the back, actually completely protects the motorcycle when it falls. When it's on its side, there's not a single part of the motorcycle that touches the ground except for the crash bar and the pannier. So it's a great combination to protect the motorcycle, although a bit expensive. Next I have the skid plate. The KLR at least comes with a plastic skid plate. There's been so many times where the motorcycle will drop down for whatever reason, and then there's rocks that come up and hit this skid plate, and every time it happens I can hear it, and that's how I know that I got my money's worth by buying the skid plate. Generally I think there's a few different options, but they all do the same thing. The only thing I can say is that it's a little bit of a benefit if you have extra space here to access the cam chain tensioner screw, or some people call it the doohickey screw. Next we have the panniers. The panniers are actually what I'm going to mention as part of the storage space, but like I said, they do great for also protecting the motorcycle. I've upgraded mine with this bar, or upgrade might not be the right word. I've reinforced them with this extra bar of aluminum, and this is around on the edges. I have silicone to keep it waterproof, and it does great. You'll see on the other side. I've really used this quite a bit. As you can see, this is the side that I fell originally, and you can see it still is holding up great. Here, let me get you a view from farther away. Alright, next up we have handlebar ends. Personally, I'm not a fan of the setup that I have. There's one product out there, I forgot the name, but I'll list it down on the web page, where these handlebar protectors go all the way around and connect to the handlebar, and I think that is the best option that you have, because the biggest concern when falling is that the lever will break off. And well, you can carry spares for those, or you can pay the extra money and get yourself the handlebar protector that will protect the lever as well. Next, this might be a little bit extra for some of you, but I upgraded the brake lines to stainless steel. Typically, I don't know if this is exactly a necessary thing, but it wasn't that expensive, and some people will say that these motorcycle brake lines have to be replaced unless they're stainless steel. So at least with this, I have the comfort of knowing that they will work without any problems for the rest of my journey. And this might not apply to your motorcycle, but for mine, here there's a rear brake cylinder that's rather vulnerable, and there's a protector that you can install, and that will make sure that this thing doesn't get damaged. This is the other stainless steel brake line that I have installed for the rear. Alright, and that's it for protectors. Next I will go into comfort. I have things like the windshield. The stock windshield on this motorcycle is quite low, and by getting a taller one, you create yourself great protection. Not protection, I'm sorry. It creates a nice, almost like a bubble, where you don't constantly have to fight against the headwind with your helmet, and you don't have the constant noise that comes from forcing your way through the air. This one I have is okay, should be a little bit taller, but you can actually modify a windshield by cutting out another piece of plastic that's strong and then attaching it on top of it, but I haven't had the time to do that. And next I have the gel seat. So this is if you look at it, you're going to say this is the stock seat for the KLR 650. However, what I did is I purchased a memory foam and also a gel, and I basically took this cover off and opened up the seat cushion, tore out some of what was already there, and then I created a nice little space for the gel and the memory foam. And the way I designed it, I also created a little bit of a drop here in the middle, because when I first made the install of the gel, I used to get numb down where it's most important, and now with this little canyon down here in the middle, that definitely helps deal with that problem. Never had that happen again, even on the longest rides. And after that, I would say heated grips. Yes. So I have these here. They're from Oxford. The reason I got these is I saw another person who had them on a KLR, and I believe these are the only ones where you can buy the grips with the heating components inside of them, rather than putting the heating component inside of your existing grips. And you see here they have a very thick wire that runs across. I installed these myself. And yeah, this is the controller, and they work great. Next I have the highway pegs. Some people will put pegs here, or will buy pegs, so that they can, instead of just putting their feet on these pegs, they will have a second position for long rides where they can stretch out their legs. Some people put up to 3, but I would say 1 definitely makes a big difference. I didn't put any, but I'm not that picky about it. I make sure to take enough breaks. And finally, these, as you'll notice, are also modified component. Normally, motorcycle comes with these plastic pegs, but these, I suppose, they're best for dirt riding, so that you don't lose your grip on the peg. I wouldn't say that it's critical. Actually, more so, this ends up cutting through all the cheap rainproof pants that I've bought, but they're good. I like them. They're comfortable. So after this, we will go into storage space. So for starters, storage space. I like these. These are panniers from Happy Trails. There's other options out there, but I like these because they lock up. Maybe you're expecting me to show you that, so let me just take this off. Another benefit is it provides extra attachment points for more stuff. Anyway, these come with a lock, they're waterproof, and they have added functionality by protecting the motorcycle in combination with the crash bars. So I'm happy with these. You can get some you can get ones of different sizes. There's a lot of options for them, and the only thing that you have to focus on for your motorcycle is to get the right what are these called? Racks? Mounting racks? Yes. So after the side panniers, we have the top case. This is the top case. I have one from Jivi. It's the D46 mono key. There's a lot of different options, and actually they get bigger than this. This one, I bought it because it said it can fit 2 helmets, which I felt was enough for the things that I needed to put inside of it. I put all my most valuable things in here. This seems to be the best protected part of the motorcycle, so it's worked out for me. I've been very happy with it. And next I have the tank bag. This is a very small tank bag. I definitely recommend a tank bag as big as it gets, because this is the ideal place to put extra weight, and make sure you get one that's waterproof. And finally, this is an innovation that I saw from another person's blog online, is these ABS pipes. A lot of people, they use these to store tools, but frankly I wouldn't trust myself to put tools in here, because anyone can turn these caps and open these to steal what's inside. So still, I use these. I put water bottles inside of them. Water bottles are pretty heavy for their size, so it's a good way to balance out some of the weight on the motorcycle as well. And make sure that you secure them in a way that they don't suddenly fall off while you're riding, because unfortunately for me I've had the contents of them fall out because the vibration actually caused the cap to fall off. So make sure that you have everything secured tightly. And that would be it for storage. After this, our next topic would be hardware. The first thing that I would like to bring up for hardware is the rear shock. When I initially thought I was going to start the trip and loaded up the bike with all my gear, I couldn't even pull out the side stand to let the motorcycle stand on its own. It was so heavy, and the rear shock was so compressed that it actually would fall over to the other side. So I upgraded the shock. I hope you can see it here. I have the progressive, I believe it's this 365, but generally speaking, you just want to make sure that you know how much weight is going to be on your bike, and you get a shock that has the appropriate strength for that. Ciao. Hasta luego. After this, next thing I want to cover is the center stand. A lot of motorcycles come with center stands. I think they're great, and they're very useful for propping up the rear tire, so that you can get at the chain and clean it and lubricate it. And generally speaking, I also, whenever I check into a place, I like to take all the gear off of the motorcycle and put the bike on the center stand, and hopefully that takes some of the pressure off of the rear shock. Definitely, I would say a must. Next, I have spare clutch cable. So as you'll see here, instead of carrying a spare clutch cable somewhere in my storage space, I just ran it alongside the existing clutch cable. See, this is the spare one, and yeah, it's ready. Anytime that my existing clutch cable tears on me, I just will replace it. Will hopefully just take me a couple of minutes. So far it has never happened, and hope it doesn't happen, but just in case it does, I'll be ready for it. Here again, you can see this is the spare, and this is the one that's attached to the motorcycle. And while we're here, you can see that I also changed, actually let's talk about that later. That's KLR specific. You want to make sure that you have a good battery. You don't want yourself to get getting stuck somewhere, or worse, that you just, I don't know, that can't go anywhere because somehow you're having electrical problems on your motorcycle. I got myself an AGM maintenance-free battery by Deca, I believe, and so far it's done great for me. I've never been, no matter how many times I crank that battery, even if the bike won't start, the battery still has enough juice in it, amazingly. Next, extra oil filters and fuel filters. This is a fuel filter that I installed myself, and I carry a spare. Basically, I can visually see if I have dirty fuel in me on my motorcycle, and if I ever find that this has become so dirty that the fuel doesn't flow through anymore, I will replace it. So far, I've never had that. And oil filters. Depending on what type of motorcycle you have, if you have one that's common in the places that you're traveling through, then maybe you don't have to carry any. And in my case, I have one that is very rare, especially considering that it's an internal fuel filter, and I always carry spares with me. Actually, it'd be good to carry a little bit of spare oil as well, just in case your motor burns it a little bit. Levers. If you don't have the handlebar protector that's going to protect your levers as well, I definitely recommend that you carry a spare lever, one for each side. And another thing that you could do to prevent breaking the lever is to shorten it just a bit, and hopefully when it falls, it will fall on, if it hits any part of this of your motorcycle, it will hopefully just hit the handlebar and not your lever. Front sprocket and chain. The front sprocket will wear much faster than your rear sprocket, so I would say, again, if you believe it will be hard to find, take a spare front sprocket with you. Same goes for the chain. Take a spare with you if you think that you won't be able to find one wherever you're traveling. Get a flat tire kit. If you ever get a flat tire, you don't want to end up stranded wherever you are, because you never know if you go to some remote areas where there's not a lot of people going by. Just want to be on the safe side. And another suggestion is that you actually upgrade your tire tubes. I think there are some that are thicker than usual, and they will probably be well worth it and save you a lot of headache if they will help you avoid getting a puncture. Get spare brake pads, both for the front and the back, and they're actually not very difficult to replace, so you can watch a YouTube video about how to do that. And finally, I would say get some lubricant for your chain, because especially when you're in places where it rains a lot, the lubrication just runs off the chain, so it's always good to keep it lubricated. And take an owner's manual with you. You never know when you're going to have to learn how to do something that you've never done before. Anyway, moving on. Next we have, what I mean by extra functionality is things like an alarm system. I installed an alarm on this motorcycle. It has a perimeter sensor as well. It has a shock sensor. It has a lot of sensors actually. Here's the remote that I have for it. It's by Scorpio. The remote is what I like about it, because when the alarm does go off, the remote starts to sound, and the alarm as well. So if I have the place parked outside of where I'm sleeping, for example, or if I go into a supermarket, I can turn on the alarm and I can go about do my own thing. And whenever the remote sensor goes off, then I know the alarm is off on the bike, and I come running out to see what happened. I would say the perimeter sensor is not a necessary component, but it's not bad to have. The problem with the perimeter sensor is that whenever you have a motorcycle that looks like it's gone around the world, people will come to take a look at it, not necessarily to touch it, just to check it out. And unfortunately, just by them checking it out, it can send off the alarm. The reason why I got the perimeter sensor is because I had these side cases, and I thought people could get to the motorcycle and get into these things, and I wanted to make sure that if they do, the the alarm will go off, but actually just the shock sensor will trigger the alarm. Right now it won't go off because it knows that it's me, because the remote is right here. So I'm standing next to it with the remote. Next thing would be the 12 volt outlet. I have here a 12 volt outlet. It's waterproof. As you can see, it says marine on it, and I added the switch on there that will turn it off if I want to. And it's cheap. You can buy it off of eBay or Amazon. I think I got mine, actually I forgot, probably Amazon. And you run a cable with a fuse to your battery, and that's it. It's very simple. I have it tucked away neatly. You can't even see the wires. And this other gadget here is something that I found on Amazon as well. This one here in the middle will show me the voltage of my battery. As you can see, it's doing great, 13.3 volts. Here on the right, it's showing me the temperature, 26.5 Celsius. And on the left is basically the time, which, as you can see with the switch that I have here on the right, it turns off this gauge. So as soon as I flip the switch, which is usually when I start a trip, the time starts ticking, and that's how I know how long I've been riding. Usually I use that to figure out what time it is as well. And as the rains are starting, I hope to wrap up this video. Finally, the last few bits of advice are specific to the KLR 650. So in this case, very quickly, underneath this front fairing here, you won't be able to see it underneath the fuel tank. I have a thermobob installed. The thermobob should definitely help when I get to colder climates, like in Patagonia. I already mentioned the rear brake cylinder to protect the cylinder for the rear brake. Then I have this component here. I changed the oil, what is this called? The oil cap. And I did this because this one that is here is one that people cannot open by hand. I didn't want to risk that maybe some people that want to have my motorcycle fail on me, so maybe some mechanics that are looking for work, I didn't want for them to be able to access this by hand and then maybe stuff God knows what into the motor. And finally, underneath where the oil cap is also, the oil plug is, I changed the oil plug with a magnetic plug. Let's see if I can get the camera down in there. I found them to recognize much. Yeah, I changed the oil plug to a magnetic one, and yeah, it's good. All the little metal bits that might get in there get caught in it. And that concludes how to prepare your motorcycle for a motorcycle tour like the Trans-American that I'm doing right now.